think it's important that people ought to know what happened, to whom it happened, when it happened, and why it happened. And I can answer the question for you. Is that the why it happened was because there was a black community in that area and they took the property.
There was this thriving community of oystermen and people. They had churches and schools and an entire community. It's important to tell that story, and not just to their families, but to our entire community.
They were property owners, business owners, they were tradesmen, oystermen, cabinet makers. They lived there. It was a self-sustaining community. No one will ever know that community existed if we don't tell that story.
I believe a lot of them were oystermen. Some of the women, were cooks. I know that I had some sort of great aunt that was a midwife. So, they had jobs where they were needed. They did jobs that were needed during that time. I know that they had like I said, 2-story homes. They had oyster beds that they owned, apple trees. They lived off of the land.
They were all made to move. Can you imagine someone telling you tomorrow that you have to leave your house? During that time, there were not many places that African Americans could live.
So when did you first hear about the reservation? And you were a child and you just overheard?
Oh, when I was a child, my uncles, they would come together, especially on Sunday nights. And my Uncle Johnny used to be the one who made the homebrew. And they would come together on Sunday nights, and we would sit around listening, and you pick up things, and they always refer to my brother did this, my brother did this. When you sit around them, and like I say, they never forgot where they came from. And that was part of the conversation. That would always come up. And like I said, my Uncle Ezekiel would take me down, and I had no idea that we came out of Vailgate Creek, and he carried me down and pointed out to where our ancestors came from. And he wanted me to know those things so I wouldn't forget it.
Well, it wasn't surprising that it happened, to be honest with you. But it was very surprising that it never was conversational. It was never anything that was discussed or talked about it, because it was a major event that uprooted an entire community. And it was done in a way that did not really provide reparations or really beneficial amounts to say this is really substantially representing what you lost.
My grandmother was Yerda Lee Smith, and she married William Smith, and her mother was Martha Ella Taylor, and she married John Henry Lee. John Henry's parents were Emily Bird and James Monroe Lee. Well, I know that John Henry Lee was an oysterman. I found out that he and Martha both had oyster beds. And when they did the valuation process, she told the government that she wanted about $6,000 for everything that she owned. It was a certain amount that she wanted for her house, a certain amount for her land. And she said that it meant a lot to her, that was where they had lived all their lives. And they had the convenience of getting fish and oyster right from the York River.
So she asked for $6,000. Do you know how much she received?
Yes, she got $1,930.
It's important to us to come out here. We still come out here and honor our family here, but to get on the property to Kiskiak Cemetery, which is known as Cheesecake Cemetery, we have to give 60 days notice. They have a limit of how many people can go. We've had a cousin that wanted to come in March she was going to be in town from Pennsylvania. She could not go.
It makes me sad to think that my ancestors are still buried on land that nobody can go and visit, that we can't go and see them. and just imagining their family leaving them there, leaving, their grandmother who was buried there, and never being able to come back to see their see their headstone and to visit them like we can do. Like we can go visit our family members at, the cemetery. So I know that, I don't know what she is, maybe my 5th great grandmother named Octavia, and she was married to an Anthony Hunley, and she is still buried at the cemetery at the reservation at York Naval Weapons Station. We actually went there back in September and was able to see her headstone still there on the property.
To me, it's crucial. I mean, a people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. I generally call the history of black people the greatest story never told, because we know so little about it. There was an African philosophical saying that answered the question. When the question was asked, how do you know you exist? The answer is, I am because we are, and because we are, therefore I am. And that's the way I see this whole picture that's formulating in terms of what happened with the reservation. Because they were, I am and we are who we are today. I wouldn't be here, my family wouldn't be here. All of the hard work that they put in led to their being able to sustain themselves, continue their families, and keep progressing.
It's important to know where you came from, what they went through. It makes you have a different perspective on life, It makes you have a connection with them. I feel like history should be told. It's not something that should be hidden or devalued or whatever. It's just, it's life. It's the way that things were. And when you have people that have been treated unjustly, you need to tell about that. And I'm hoping that the ancestors know that we are doing this. It makes us feel good to think that they are up there, looking down and saying, go Mary, go Carlin, go Crystal, go Carla. And so we're hoping that there's some kind of connection, even though we don't know what happens in life, but we're just hoping that we're some way that they are aware of this, because we know that they had to go through pure hell back then.
This didn't come through, just dropped. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of blessings from the Lord. They planted the seeds that He gave them. They cultivated those seeds. They watered them. They watched them grow. And now we're on their shoulders reaping that harvest. It's nice to be able to tell the story about our family and other families. And so we're standing on their shoulders.
So often, the statement is, well, if you work hard and you do the things that you should do, you'll have those rewards. In this case, they did all of those things. And as opposed to reward, they lost. But despite their loss, they, through their resilience and their determination, gained it and then more. And so much of that was, I think, again, their faith in God, their strength, and their love for family.
I would like to see more understanding. People have more understanding and respect, because I'm finding that in 2023, we're still having people who just feel as though you're black, so you don't have certain rights, So I would like to see it done in a way that we all will understand. Doesn't matter what, and people will understand that we are important, no matter what our skin color is.
We always hear folks say we don't want to repeat our past, so it's important for us to know our history. And that's one of the reasons that it's important, but it's also important to the families to know their history, to share their history, to share it with their young people. it's important to tell that story, and not just to their families, but to our entire community, and important to teach the young people in school. I think this is an important story that needs to be told about how folks were dispossessed and their property was taken away or they were moved off of their land, and what became of them, what became of the families, how the communities survived beyond that. And it just shows the resilience and the strength of the people, and people right here in our community who are part of that family.